Now, most of us may be aware that the Pride movement, the pivotal moment, I would call it the Tinder spark that sort of set off how we understand modern gay pride, happened at Stonewall. And this was at New York City. It was a bar that was for gay LGBTQ, not that we identified it that way then. Language has changed a lot since 1969, right? And in that space, the police came in and they tried to arrest everyone, and it devolved into, for the first time, a black lesbian threw the first punch and said, enough, right? And that spread, and there were days of unrest in the village after the Stonewalls, we call them the Stonewall riots. But it didn't just start there. It started here. It started even before here. But we're going to start with Bayard Rustin, because the gay rights movement would not exist without this man. The Black Civil Rights Movement wouldn't exist without this man either, but the gay rights movement would not exist without this man. So he was what you would call at the time, out gay man, which meant only the people closest to him knew. He was a close confidant of Martin Luther King, and he was continually caught in this dynamic tension between him being gay and being unapologetic about his sexual orientation, and the tension that was creating within the Black community. And there were Black ministers who threatened to tell the world that Bayard Rustin and Martin Luther King were lovers if Bayard Rustin didn't step back. So he stepped back for a while. But then we get to 1963, and Martin Luther King, a man of such vision, said, I don't care that he is gay. He is the best man for this job. And Bayard Rustin organized that 1963 March on Washington, where over 200,000 people descended on Washington. And some of the people that descended along Washington with him were part of, well, I'm going to go forward, the Mattachine Society. There were 9 members of the Mattachine Society who went down to see what Bayard Rustin was doing. And this is where the seeds start to get planted. So gay rights, the idea of gay rights existing in wholeness, existed before the 60s. We had in the 50s, it was really the Sisters of Bilitis and the Mattachine. And there were other organizations as well, but those two were really sort of pivotal. And they had chapters all over the United States, and they were very committed to working within the status quo. So they were working to try to shift medical doctors' opinions. They were working within the system. By the time we get to the 60s, there's a real frustration with working within the system. So we start to see marches start to happen, and this is Ernestine Eckstein. The Black Civil Rights Movement created the environment and the lessons for the LGBTQ movement to grow, as well as for the women's movement. All of it grew out of the bravery, courage, vision, and insight of the Black Civil Rights Movement. And so in 1965, you start to see demonstrations happening in Washington. I love this. They did a sip-in instead of a sit-in. It's very gay, right? So in New York City, in New York State at the time, if you were gay, you could not be served in a bar. You were not allowed to be served alcohol if you were gay in a bar. So the Mattachine Society went into Julius's bar in 1966. They sat down, they ordered drinks, and then they told the bartender they were gay. And that is the bartender attempting to remove their drinks. This actually ended up changing New York State alcohol license laws.